Hey guys, this is Fred2266 here, and I'm here to read Chapter 2 of the Sweetie Chronicles, Fragments, a very good story, and I guess you could say my most popular fanfiction reading on my channel so far, because it actually got noticed by the creator of this fanfiction, Wanderer D. I guess he wanted to look up readings for his fanfictions to see who had read them so far. Unfortunately, I did, and I got featured on his user page. So I thank him a lot for that. We'll see how Chapter 2 plays out. It's over 10,000 words longer as I look. This one has over 16,000. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, almost 10,000. We're 300 words off. But still, a little bit over 9,000 words. Very good story, so this might be 3 parts. It might be very close to 3. We'll see, but it'll definitely be longer than the last one by a lot. So, Chapter 2 is entitled Of Mares and Magic. And as you remember, last chapter we ended with Trixie. Apparently, I don't know if she's Twilight or what. I don't know if her and Twilight switch lives. I don't know. I haven't read this. But I'm hoping to find out. So here we go. This is edited by Trevor, Little Robot Bird, Ganon FLCL, Cards Laughter, and The Fifth Alicorn. It's by Wanderer D, once again. Applejack looked down at Applebloom as a young filly walked up to her, head down and frowning in disappointment, only to sit down next to the apple cart. "What happened, Sugar Cube? I thought you seen Sweetabelle." "I did," the filly said, looking up at her sister, "but she didn't hear me calling. She ran straight into the library." The orange-maned mare nodded at a unicorn as he left a few bits and levitated an apple, trotting away happily. The apple farmer then turned to look at her younger sister. "Into the library?" she asked with a small frown. "She shouldn't be able to. She'll be closed at this time in the morning." "I know, and when I got to the door, it was locked." "Now, that's odd." Applejack pushed her hat back, bewildered. "As far as I know, only 2 unicorns know to spell to open it without a key." The library door suddenly slammed open, and a towel-wrapped, still wet from the shower, Trixie rolled out of the building, followed by a toothbrush. Applejack and Applebloom stared as a piece of rope enveloped in a white magic aura floated out of the library and began to wrap itself around Trixie's hooves. "Stay still!" Sweetie Belle whined, her horn aglow. "I can't tie you up if you keep squirming." "She's trying to kidnap Trixie." "But I don't want you to tie me up, sweetie," Trixie shouted, eyes wide in shock at the sudden attack. "Hey, what tarnation are you doing?" Applejack asked as she and Applebloom galloped up to the pair. "I caught Trixie in Twilight's library," Sweetie informed them as she concentrated, trying to loop the rope around the Azure unicorn, while Trixie fended her off, slowly getting up. "And?" the elder of the 2 sisters asked. "Call the guards! I almost have her!" Trixie had gotten up to her hooves, and once her heart had stopped pounding from the sudden attack from the formerly gentle and unable to perform magic filly unicorn, began carefully batting away the rope with short, concentrated bursts of magic. "Hey! Quit it!" Sweetie groaned. The show mare leveled a look at her. "No!" Sweetie Belle gritted her teeth, her brow furrowed, and her horn flashed. Trixie kept a wary eye on the surprising filly. "What was that?" "None of your business." "Now, look here, sweetie," Trixie said as she began taking a step towards the little unicorn. "You could rape her." I'm just kidding. But just as she planted her hoof down, it slid on a suddenly very slippery surface, sending the showmare to the ground, accompanied by a painful sounding oof. "Ha! Never underestimate Twilight's prize apprentice." Trixie growled and stood up, careful to avoid the slippery area around her. "Okay, sweetie. You asked for it." Her horn flashed and the rope was torn from the filly's grip. Before she could blink, the unicorn filly was upside down and hog-tied. "Hey! Let me go!" Sweetie Belle shouted, struggling against her bonds. She thrashed from side to side, horn glowing as she tried to use her magic to break the rope. But it held. "Sweetie Belle," Applebloom asked, walking towards her friend carefully, "why are you attacking Trixie? And when'd you learn magic?" The young unicorn blinked. "Applebloom! You're back!" She smiled in relief. "Quick, untie me. Maybe we can get a wanted felon catcher cutie mark." Oh God. Applejack and Trixie shared worried looks. "Sweetabelle," Applejack ventured, stepping closer to the tie unicorn. I think Sweetie's in an alternate dimension." Because it seems like Apple Bloom and Applejack, it seems like they know that Trixie's supposed to be in the library. I bet Twilight's the bitch that everyone hates, that always comes into town on a cart and sleeps in the cart. That must suck. Stepping closer to the tied unicorn. What do you mean by one wanted failing catch or cutie mark? Are there any dangerous sorts around? Oh, I hope not, Rarity broke in, having overheard Applejack as she approached the group. The last thing Ponyville needs is ponies of dubious nature. She stopped and looked down at her sister. Sweetie, why are you tied up? Trixie tied me up. Rarity followed Sweetie's guard to the show mare, who shrugged and released the spell holding the rope. Well, I wouldn't have if you hadn't attacked me, she glared at Sweetie Belle. What did you do with Twilight? The young unicorn asked angrily as she shook free of the rope. Yes, dear. Whatever happened to Twilight? Rarity asked. Your challenge ended last night. I thought she would be around for the aftermath so we might avoid certain unpleasantries. Trixie winced. So any pony can challenge me today? She sighed. Twilight left to meet with Princess Celestia last night. Ha! A likely story! Sweetie Belle bellowed as she jumped to her feet. Trixie ignored her. And I haven't heard from her since. She might write later today, I think. I checked on Spike and there are no messages next to his bed. I've seen a few new unicorns around town today, Sugar Cube, Applejack added. I don't think you have much time before the first challenger comes up, and Sweetie Belle had grown more and more frustrated as she was ignored by the older group. Wait! She shouted, drawing their attention. Sweetie! What have I told you about screaming like that? Well, you whine, bitch. Rarity scolded. Sorry! Sweetie looked down, but her eyes went back to Trixie. A frown set on her face. So, any pony can challenge you? Trixie smiled, glad that Sweetie Belle seemed to have calmed down. Any unicorn capable of performing magic who feels his or her magic is strong enough to earn them the title of great and powerful, yes. The filly smiled. Then I challenge you. What's it going to be? Checkers? A race? The group of mares looked at her, wide-eyed. Then Trixie frowned and graced the filly with a calculating look. That's possible. What? No. Rarity shook her head. You can't challenge Trixie, sweetie. Not only are you too young, but you hardly know any magic. I know lots of magic, Sweetie argued. I'm Twilight's student. The group exchanged confused looks. Sweetie Belle, Apple Bloom smiled, a bit unsure. Don't you mean Cheerile's student? Nope. Twilight made me her apprentice, Sweetie declared proudly. You know. But you went. She blinked. Wait. When did you come back from Appaloosa? Appaloosa? Her pony filly shot at Sweetie a confused look. I didn't go nowhere. We played together yesterday and the day before, remember? Scooby tried doing her double spin ultra deluxe upside down backflip to impress Rainbow Dash. Sweetie Belle's eyes were wide. Did she do it? Not exactly. Apple Bloom looked a bit worried. She lost control in the second spin and ended up dragging a cage full of weasels and chickens with her onto the catapult. You really don't remember? Sweetie shook her head. The cake? Another shake. Hog-tied that manicore? Blowing up that haystack? Setting fire to the edge of the Everfree? Damn you arsonists! Sweetie stared slack-jawed at Apple Bloom. You did all that while I was studying? Aw, stupid theory of reverse flow. So, Applejack's voice was hard, if I'm hearing this right, y'all responsible for all that chaos yesterday? Oh, shit. Apple Bloom looked panicked. No! The filly unicorn stayed simply, seemingly oblivious of her friend's panic. I was studying with Twilight. No, you wasn't! Apple Bloom turned to look at her. Y'all was there with me and Scootaloo. I was studying. Was not. Oh, God, I gotta do this. I gotta switch voices every second. Was not. Was too. Was not. Enough! Rarity was also glaring down at the pair. They both stopped and looked at her. Sweetie, you are in enough trouble as it is. Don't lie to cover it up. The filly's eyes were brimming with tears. But, sis, you know I'm Twilight's student. I even Pinky swore to do study. If she was here, she would tell you I was studying with her. Sweetie! Rarity almost growled. I don't know anything about Twilight taking you on as her apprentice, and you have never cared about magic enough to spend time studying rather than playing. Sweetie's lip trembled. She looked at Apple Bloom, but the other filly wouldn't even look at her for not admitting to have been playing with them. Now, hold on, every pony, Trixie said. Sweetie Belle seems to know quite a bit more magic than I would have expected, and she was rather skilled when she attacked me. Rarity glared at her sister. I thought she did something in Twilight, Sweetie Belle replied. Anyway, Trixie shot an odd look at the unicorn filly. Her style certainly had some elements of Twilight's influence. She frowned, tapping a hoof thoughtfully on the ground before turning to the little unicorn. Sweetie Belle, what are the three basic laws of elemental magic? Correspondence, control, and constitution, the filly responded immediately. Rarity blinked, her glare replaced by a look of awe. Yeah, she's Twilight's apprentice. They're both nerds now. Oh god, now I gotta read how to pronounce his name. Aliester's correction of the statute of limitations proposed that the primordial approach for understanding transmutation was flawed because... Oh my god, this is sciencey! Ah! Ah! Prestidigitation itself allowed for too many changes with a single spell formula, Sweetie Belle replied from memory. Phew! You have no idea how many times Twilight made me repeat that! Sorry, I'm at 11 minutes, okay. I can imagine. Trixie smiled and turned to look at the others. I think Sweetie is telling the truth, somehow. Twilight has been teaching her behind our backs. Oh? What? Unless she somehow managed to sneak into Celestia's school for gifted unicorns, she frowned. I don't understand why she would do that, but... Wait, you saying that Apple Bloom's lying? Oh, the sister of the element of honesty's lying! Applejack looked at her sister in confusion and hurt. Honesty was a very important part of their upbringing. Come what may, lying was something the Apple family could never condone. Sweetie, Apple Bloom pleaded, her great big eyes begging. Please, I don't know how you know so much about magic, but don't make me into a liar. but, the Philly Unicorn stepped back. Apple Bloom, I was studying. No, you wasn't! It sounded African American. I'm sorry. Apple Bloom snapped, eyes tearing up as the betrayal sank in. Enough, Apple Bloom, Applejack said after a moment, her eyes hard. I don't want to hear from y'all no more. You're going to go right back to the Anchors and right to your room. I clear? Yes, ma'am. Apple Bloom walked slowly and with her head down until she passed next to the unicorn filly. The Earth Pony glared at her friend. I hate you, she spat. Oh my god! We're not even probably 2,000 words in. We already got a freaking heel turn. That's a wrestling term. Heel is like bad person. Apple Bloom's a bad person. I'm sure she's in another dimension though. Trixie's not being a jerk, but Twilight, I don't know. I think it's, I don't know. I think it's just, I got nothing. I'm just gonna keep reading. Sweetie looked like she had taken a hoof to the face. But I was studying, honest! She called after her friend, who didn't bother looking back. It was all about kinetic forces. I was learning a shield spell for when we go crusading, she insisted miserably, scratching the floor with her hoof in frustration. Don't worry, sweetie, Rarity nuzzled the depressed filly. Things will go back to normal once we figure out why she lied. Now wait just an apple-picking minute, Applejack said, turning to look at Rarity. I never said she was lying. She's grounded for burning down the edge of the Everfree Forest and causing such a ruckus that the Weather Patrol had to work right for the night. I swear they could have ended up burning down the town. But, darling, you can't possibly believe that Sweetie here is lying, Rarity said, raising her eyebrow. You heard her answer Trixie's questions. I certainly didn't teach her any of that. I just don't think that Apple Bloom is lying. That's all. Rarity frowned. So you're saying that my sister is lying? Oh my god! Neither of you are lying! There's obviously a Sweetie Belle clone running around. Obviously. No, I'm not saying... Excuse me, a male unicorn stepped up to Trixie, interrupting the work pony. Are you the great and powerful Trixie? Trixie blinked. She had completely forgotten about the challenges. Yes? It is I, Trixie, she said quickly, turning to face him. I'm here to challenge you for the title, the unicorn said. My name is... I shall accept your challenge on the hills just north of Ponyville in... Trixie interrupted, turning to look at Rarity. 15 minutes? The designer shrugged. That is as good a time as any, I suppose. The male unicorn grinned and trotted away. Any has no name. That's good. That's great. Character development. The showmare turned to look at the others. Well, I best prepare. This shall be a long month, she sighed as she walked back towards the library. We'll talk later, Applejack, Rarity said, ushering Sweetie Belle away towards her boutique. Yeah. The apple farmer shook her head as she returned to her cart. Okay. Why do you look so down, sweetie? Rarity asked as the pair walked through the hill towards the hills. Apple Bloom hates me, the filly answered. I'm not lying, sis. I haven't seen them since I started learning under Twilight. Rarity turned to look at the hills, a small frown on her face. I don't know what to tell you, sweetie, the other unicorn said. Older unicorn said, sorry, my mind. What do you mean? I saw you three playing together just a few days ago, and... She stopped talking and walking when she noticed that she was alone. Oh, God. Turning around, she looked back to her sister, several steps behind, staring in horror. Sweetie? Rarity asked, taking a step towards the filly, but stopping when her sister took a matching step away from her. She saw, with horrifying slowness, how the magic pierced through Twilight's sparkle. The purple unicorn was completely engulfed in magical flames, but her worried eyes never wavered away from Sweetie Belle. Are you okay? Rarity tried again, seeing her sister's horrified gaze. As the world bent and shifted around her, she saw, in a dreadful moment of clarity, Twilight shattered into pieces that were caught in the magical maelstrom. Sweetie gasped, almost collapsing in the grass, eyes wide and breathing ragged. She could feel her heart going 100 miles an hour. She shook her head, looking around. Everything's okay. I'm in Ponyville. The library is fine. Trixie said that Twilight left last night. She frowned. But that doesn't make any sense. Sweetie? What doesn't make sense? Rarity asked, giving her sister a concerned look. Sis! I've been studying with Twilight every day for the past 2 weeks, Sweetie exclaimed. How could I have been playing with them when they weren't even here? Sweetie, are you feeling okay? Rarity asked, pressing her hoof to her sister's forehead. You don't seem to have a fever, she muttered. And Scootaloo and Apple Bloom haven't left Ponyville in months. This doesn't make any sense, Sweetie shook her head. She looked up at her sister. And why is every pony treating Trixie like she's one of us? Philly demanded. She almost killed me just last week. Rarity stood straight. What? Her eyes blazed in anger. What did Trixie do? Sweetie cringed beneath her sisters and glared in rage glare. She threw 2 werewolves at me in Twilight. What? Rarity shook her head and her anger seemed to focus on her sister. Sweetie, I've had enough of these lies. You are grounded, young lady. You just said a couple minutes ago she wasn't lying, and I guess now she's lying? But she's really not. This is all screwed up. What did you do, Trixie? But, no buts. I can believe that you were not involved in Apple Bloom and Scootaloo's chaos, but accusing Trixie of willingly putting you and Twilight in such danger is simply preposterous. I am disappointed that you'd think I would believe such a hollow lie. But, sis, Go home, Rarity said coldly. We shall have a talk. We shall have to have a talk after I witness Trixie's duel. Just because Twilight taught you a couple things yesterday doesn't mean that you can use that same excuse to convince me of something so ridiculous. Trixie would never hurt Twilight, especially after everything that's happened in the last couple years. What happened in the last couple years? I said go! Rarity snapped, and I had better not catch you outside your room. Sweetie Belle opened her mouth to object, but snapped it shut as she found herself facing the full force of her sister's angry glare. Lowering her head and turning around, Sweetie walked slowly towards Carousel Boutique. She could feel Rarity's eyes on her as she trotted away from the street. What am I on? 18 minutes. Okay. What's going on? She thought, frustrated. How could every pony forget about the werewolves? She shook her head as she passed the first few houses. What's happening here? She thought as she kept her eyes on the ground. Just yesterday, I was with Twilight at the lab. How come she is fine? With the princess if that spell exploded on her? Her eyes narrowed. How come every pony thinks Trixie is our friend? Just like that. How come no pony remembers the werewolves? I guess you could say, this is the Sweetie that cried wolf. Yeah! I have no sunglasses. I can't. Plus, that was lame, so let's just keep reading. She stopped and pawed at the ground with her hoof. Come on, Sweetie. You know how to solve a problem. Twilight drilled into your head, she growled to herself. Okay, let's examine the facts. Sweetie's thoughts went back to her earlier memories. I got blasted by that spell. Twilight was. She shuddered, pushing the thought to the back of her mind. Then I wake up. Applejack and Applebloom are suddenly back from Appaloosa, Rarity's back from Philadelphia, and every pony thinks I'm just playing around. They even remember me doing exactly that. There can only be one conclusion. It's the terrorist that tells you! Sweetie stomped her hoof on the ground. I didn't kill Twilight. Trixie must have come into the library and done something. Her eyes widened. Trixie somehow brainwashed every pony with a spell. She blinked. Wait, does that mean that I murdered Twilight? She gulped as a sudden shiver ran up her spine. No. No, 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 no. No. A buzzing sound grabbed her attention, and she looked up to see one of her best friends propelling herself towards her on top of her scooter. God. Scootaloo! She smiled, gratefully pushing the horrible thoughts to the back of her mind as the copper-colored Pegasus stopped abruptly in front of the unicorn. There you are, she said angrily, jumping off her scooter and stomping up to Sweetie Belle. Listen, there's something going on! Sweetie Belle started to say, but she was interrupted by Scootaloo pressing her forehead and snout right against hers. They gon' kiss. The hell is your problem, sweetie? The Pegasus asked, fuming. I just saw Applebloom on her way to Sweet Apple Acres and she was crying. And guess what she told me when I asked her why? Go on, guess! Sweetie fell back onto the floor, eyes wide and staring at her friend. She told me that you lied to cover your own sorry flank and let her take all the blame for our crusading. But So what is it? Scootaloo asked venomously, walking from side to side in front of the unicorn. Did you just not want to get in trouble? I guess being a crusader doesn't mean you have to be loyal. Sweetie cringed. Scootaloo, I swear I didn't lie. I was studying with Twilight but you were not studying! Scootaloo shouted, drawing the attention of several passerbys. You're with us! Sweetie shrank back. But, Scootaloo, you have to believe me. I don't even know why I'm bothering to talk to you, traitor, the Pegasus said. You lied, and you hurt Applebloom. She looked away. And me. But I didn't. Sweetie's lower lip trembled. Why doesn't any pony believe me? She turned around and ran as fast as she could into town. Sweetie, wait! We're not done here! Behind her, Scootaloo's voice faded as the unicorn ran away. She went into alleys and side streets. Ponyville wasn't a big place, but she wanted to put as much distance between herself and Scootaloo as she could. She slowed down inside, looking up to see where she was. The library stood proudly in front of her. The warm wooden interior and the smell of books smell horrible. The smell of books something she found she needed now. Funny that I would end up back here, she thought. Now I'm craving a book. She entered the library, closing the door and locking it behind her. Trixie? A voice called from the kitchen. Oh, that's Spike. I'm guessing it's Spike. Okay, it is Spike. Okay. Trixie? A voice called from the kitchen. Is that you? Where is... Oh! Hey, Sweetie Belle. Spike blinked as he walked into the main room. What are you doing here? He looked around suspiciously. Are Applebloom and Scootaloo hiding somewhere? You aren't trying to get a Dragon Slayer cutie mark again, are you? I tried to kill him later. Spike cringed. Sweetie Belle couldn't help herself and started crying at the mention of her friends. She ran up to him and hugged the little dragon close as she bawled her eyes out. Spike froze for a second. The little dragon flailed about with his arms at the sudden invasion of his personal space, but eventually he managed to return the hug and pat her back, even as he looked around in a panic. There, sweetie, he said once he realized he was on his own. Please calm down? The filly cried for a bit longer, but she nodded against his shoulder and slowly stepped back. Why don't I make you some tea? Chamomile, okay? Sweetie sniffed. Would it be okay to have some of your special spicy tea, Spike? Spike tensed. I know it's usually for special occasions, but I really like it. She smiled a little and sniffled. That did it. The dragon couldn't deny her. Okay, he acquiesced. But just this once. Sweetie nodded, still sniffling, and went to look at the books as the baby dragon walked into the kitchen. Her horn flared as a tome slid out and floated to a table. Her magic opened the large book on top of the table. She skimmed through the pages until she reached the page number where she had last read the book. That's weird, she muttered. I already read this page. She flipped a couple pages until she found the correct spot. Must have forgotten where I was. She read in silence until Spike came out of her tea. Absent-mindedly, she levitated the cup from the astonished dragon's grasp and set it down carefully where it would not spill in the book. She took a pause from her reading to sip the tea, eyes closed blissfully. Thank you, Spike. That was really nice, Sweetie said, giving the flustered dragon a quick peck on the cheek. Oh ho ho, ooh la la,